We had a rock star, Dylan, perform for us earlier. We've got another superstar performing us later this afternoon, but it's now my pleasure to welcome to the stage someone I also consider a rock star, our UCAN champion today, Adam. I'd also like to welcome Adam's dad, Adam Senior, mum Christine, granddad Peter, brother Aidan, and extended family and friends who are all here today having travelled from Broken Hill. Would you please welcome our UCAN champion today, Adam, to tell his story.
The 13th of November 2023 was the day my life changed. I'd recently turned 20 and arrived home from a trip to watch the Bathurst races. After having some routine tests at the Broken Hill Hospital following a night of coughing and just not feeling right, I was informed that I would be staying overnight just so they could keep an eye on me for suspected pneumonia and that I would be released in the morning. Dad and I both overheard the nurse and doctor talking about white blood cells and the discussion that the levels were too high to be correct. We both silently did our own Google searches. We both came up with leukemia but didn't say a word to each other about it at that time. Things escalated quickly the next day, and instead of heading home, by 2 p.m, I was in an ambulance heading to the airport where the flying doctors were waiting to transfer me to Royal Adelaide Hospital as maybe I had leukemia. I could sense that the nurse and pilot were stressed during the flight as the nurse kept asking the pilot to fly lower and lower to control my oxygen. After being admitted into Ward 7 at RA, I was comfortable on a basic level of oxygen whilst other tests were being done, with a good mate who was in Adelaide and mum and dad arriving after completing the 6-hour drive. By 7 p.m, everyone had left except Dad, who elected to stay overnight. Things were a bit more stressed by 10 p.m, with the nursing staff struggling to keep enough oxygen into me. By 11 p.m, the medical emergency team, who I would meet a few times during my treatment, were frantically trying to keep me breathing. This was the most scared I've ever been, and the feeling of not being able to breathe is something that I would not wish on anyone. Once they worked out how to store enough oxygen cylinders on the bed, as I was draining them so quickly, I was transferred to the ICU where I stayed the next 5 days. That was my introduction to T-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. On the day of my release from ICU, 5 days after arriving in Adelaide, I had to make a life choice on my fertility within 24 hours. This was not what I thought I'd be doing at 20. Treatment progressed quickly once I was out of ICU and back on the ward, and the chemo delivered by drip, needles and into my spine commenced straight away for the first 33-day cycle. There was no time to understand what was really happening, and being poked and prodded around the clock became the new normal. The rounds of chemo in early 2024 were brutal, with every dose in the extreme, to the point the nurses would apologise for having to deliver the medication. After 6 rounds of chemo and another stay in ICU, the leukemia was still present, and it was elected that a stem cell transplant was required. After a few different options, my sister Caitlin became the best option to be my donor. As she had just turned 15 and was under the required age, a series of steps had to be completed with her special permissions granted. On the 14th of June 2024, Caitlin donated her cells and became the first ever allogenic stem cell donor in SA at the Women's and Children's Hospital. The following day, I received my new cells after a week of intensive preparations, including total body irradiation that had me being subjected to radiation twice daily for the 5 days leading up to the transplant, along with chemo and endless other medications. There is no way to truly describe the lead up to and the first 20 days post the stem cell transplant. It is simply brutal, and each day is an absolute struggle to get through. With the support of my family and friends, I made it through and was eventually able to leave the ward by remaining in Adelaide. The magic day that everyone works to after a transplant is day 100, and it happened to be one day before I turned 21. Thankfully, with the support of my treatment team, I was allowed to head back to Broken Hill for my 21st birthday and also for the first time in 11 months, stay in town between my medical appointments. Being home in Broken Hill was great, and it is where I wanted to be. I missed out on family birthdays, my sister's 16th and her formal, and most of my friends turning 21. These are important moments, and missing them has stayed with me. This is where the Sony Foundation has made such a massive difference to my recovery and general well-being. I had 4 to 6 weeks of feeling okay between the end of September and the start of December 2024, before the real effects of the transplant started to play out. Graft versus host disease attacked my body, my mouth, skin, eyes and joints all became affected quite quickly, and since the first week in December 2024 to today, I've visited Adelaide almost weekly for treatment or review. It is hard to put into words what the Sony Foundation accommodation really means to me and my family. Those that know me, including my medical team, know that I developed a hatred of being on the ward and in my room. It really played my mental health, and I seriously started looking at avoiding treatment to stay out of hospital. Since December 2024, the Sony Foundation You Can Stay accommodation at the Quest kept me out of hospital on at least 3 separate occasions due to the proximity to the RA. Without the support of the You Can Stay accommodation, I would have been admitted on these occasions, and at that stage my mental health would have suffered even further, as while I love the support from the doctors and nurses and support staff, of spending time in hospital was something I couldn't handle. The Quest has become a second home, and we have stayed in every double room on all floors over the past 10 months. Booking the accommodation through the Sony Foundation has been easy and hassle-free from day one, even though we have had to change dates and sometimes travel back and forth from Broken Hill multiple times a week, with our stays anywhere from 1 day to a week. Being a young person with cancer really sucks, and living in a regional area away from the treatment centres doesn't help. From the first day of arriving in Adelaide, it became apparent that our lives were going to change. It started as a 3-month stay that almost instantly became 6 months that eventually became 11 months. Mum moved to Adelaide, leaving behind her own cafe and family, and Dad travelled back and forth around my appointments, work, and the rest of our family. I don't know how they both did it, and they are still with me at every step, every trip. I've not done one alone. My 4 siblings rotated between Broken Hill and Adelaide, and this kept me in touch with them all. Football and car racing stopped, catching up with friends stopped, going out on a weekend stopped, and all I could do was watch my friends live their lives. As the months went on, the isolation increased, along with the feeling of missing out. After changing treatment and starting ECP, I feel like I am starting to regain some strength and energy. Some of the side effects have gone, and others I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. I am proud of where I am and what I've achieved over the past 2 years, and look forward to getting back to work and having a normal life. I have a way to go, but I will get there. In closing, I want to say youth cancer is something I never thought about before the 14th of November 2023. It never crossed my mind. It is only once you're in the system that you start to see how many lives are impacted. I am so happy to see so many people here today to support the new building of the new UCAN Centre here in Adelaide that is desperately needed for the 15 to 29-year-olds, as we really don't fit in on the ward, and it can be a lonely place to be. Having somewhere other than the hospital room to rest and interact with others in the same age group would have been great and would have helped with my hatred of being in hospital. Please support this great cause. I want to thank my family, the amazing team on Ward 7 and the 3E clinics, and all those that have supported me to reach this point in my treatment. Thank you for listening.
Good. Yeah, thank God. I'm going for that. Do you want to go this way? Yeah. I'm standing ovation. Adam, thank you so much. Sharing your story with us today takes incredible bravery and courage. Your honesty, strength and resilience reminds us all why we are here, to make sure no young person faces cancer alone. And as you heard in Adam's story, if we say that it takes a village to raise a child, it really does take a village to help an adolescent and a young person through the cancer journey. And you all, just by being here, have now become a part of that village. Once again, would you please put your hands together for Adam?